Hey everyone, so this is my video submission for LST 803 Ontology and Epistemology, um, where we're focusing on Chapter 3. Um, so in Chapter 3, she's looking at how social structures shape knowledge, power, and reality. Sally Haslingter argues that what we consider truth isn't about isn't just about facts. It's shaped by institutions and people in power. In other words, our ideas about leadership, success, fairness, and even morality aren't neutral. They're influenced by history, culture, politics, and they often serve those that are already in power. Now, when you look at today's world, where there's debates about who gets access to education, who gets seen as a leader, or who voices are amplified in politics and media, it's clear that these aren't just individual opinion, they're social constructs, right? She makes a simple but powerful point. Knowledge isn't about just discovering facts. It's about who gets to decide what's true and what matters. She gives an example of her daughter wanting to follow a fashion trend while her parents push back. It's a small moment, but it reflects something much bigger. Social norms shape what we see as acceptable or valuable. Now, if we apply this to something more serious, leadership and merit, in politics and business, there's this idea that leaders rise to the top because they're the best for the job. But who defines best? If a leadership has historically been held by one group of people, then their criteria for success are built more about them. That's why when people talk about increasing diversity in leadership, it's merit with resistance because it's changing who's in charge. Also means changing the definition of leadership itself. Affirmative action and fairness. The recent arguments about affirmative action, DEI, especially in education and hiring, show some people see fairness as keeping others the way they've always been. But Sally would argue that those systems were never fair to begin with. They were built to provide advantage to certain groups of people while shutting down others. All right. She also talked about how power controls the narrative. She breaks down that the people in power shape what counts as important knowledge. Especially in today's political climate, we have voting rights. Some states are making it even harder to vote, claiming that it's about election security, but why is these restrictions more affect marginalized communities more? Sally will say that this isn't about security, it's about controlling who has say in democracy. Education and censorship. There's been a big push to limit discussions on race, gender, and history in schools with the argument that certain topics are too divisive. But who decides what's controversial? When certain history or perspectives are erased, it's about it's not about protecting, it's about shaping the next generation understanding of truth. Sally also talked about the biggest points in it is even when they recognize inequalities, people resist real change because we're so used to the things that are. For example, economic inequality. Most people agree that the gap between the rich and the poor is a problem, but when policies like increasing the minimum wage or taxing billionaires are proposed, they're calling it unrealistic or harmful to business. But why? Because our economic system has been built to favor short-term corporate profits over long-term fairness. And challenging that makes people uncomfortable. Climate change, we talk about it all the time. For the last 10 years, you've heard it. Scientists have been warning us for years, yet major policies to address the issue are often delayed or watered down. The reason? The way our society is structured prioritizes corporate interests over sustainability. So how do we fix it? Sally made it clear, acknowledging the problem isn't enough. Real change comes from actively reshaping institutions. That can come by in many ways. One, by redefining leadership. She talked about we need to stop acting like diversity in leadership is lowering the bar and recognizing that leadership standards were built for one group of people and not for everyone. Changing economic policies. Instead of assuming things like wealth equality are just part of life, we should ask, why do we accept a system that rewards the few and the expense of many? Another one is expanding access to education and voting. If democracy and knowledge are supposed to be for everyone, then we need to make sure that it's actually accessible. And currently, I think that's not the case. All right. She points out that the systems don't change on their own. They change when people actively demand them and build something better. My key takeaways from this chapter was social reality is constructed. What we accept as normal or true is shaped by history and institutions. Power defines true. The people in charge decide what's valuable, who leads, and who gets a voice. It's hard to change the systems from inside. Even when people recognize injustice, the status quo is often protected. My last point will be change takes action. We can't just point out our problems, we have to build solutions. My final thought is that Sally, her work is a reminder that today's biggest political conflicts, whether it's about race, gender, education, voting rights, or economic inequality, are really about control over knowledge and power. If we know if we know that reality is socially constructed, then we have to ask ourselves, who is shaping the world we live in? And how do we make it more for everyone? Or why are they shaping it in a way that benefits a particular group and it further marginalizes another group, or even takes us back to where we were at before? This is my opinion, and this is what I read this week. Thank you, everyone.